Today we're talking about the most gangster battleship of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, the USS Texas, predating both world wars, being built in 1914, it is commonly referred to as the last Dreadnought. But it's not technically a Dreadnought, it belongs to the American New York class of battleships, which were commonly referred to as Super Dreadnoughts, which are basically just dreadnoughts that were made in twelfths. And you're never going to believe this, but they were better than all the ones made with the metric system. What made them the best? Well, they had the largest guns ever put on a boat before at that point in time. Those being the Mark I, a turret with 2 barrels capable of launching 14-inch shells that weighed nearly 1,600 pounds apiece. The USS Texas had 5 of them, 2 in the front and 3 in the back. It was like a Freedom sedan. Those guns were also aimed with ballistic calculators and analog computers, making them some of the most accurate naval guns in the world at that point. It was also equipped with 16 Mark 8s shooting 5-inch shells, and 8 Mark 10s shooting 3-inch shells. Not only did it have the best offense in its day, it had the best defense as well. It was the first ship in world history to incorporate anti-aircraft guns, as well as having a 12-inch thick hull. Yeah, an entire freedom foot of Pittsburgh steel. The only thing millimeters is going to do to that is scratch the paint. So you have the best battleship ever made at that point in time. How do you make it more intimidating? That's easy. You have it be the first American ship to ever incorporate Marines in its crew. I'm going to say that again, but slower. They let the fucking water grunts drive the biggest aquatic gun ever made. At that point in history, anyways. So World War I rolls around, and needless to say, nobody wanted to be the first to get hit with the Freedom sedan. And for that reason, the USS Texas saw almost no combat in World War I. But its actions in World War II is what made it a naval legend. By the time World War II came around, the USS Texas was nearly 3 decades old. It was no longer the most dangerous battleship in the world, with bigger, newer, faster, fancier ships like the German Bismarck, the Japanese Yamato, and the Iowa-class battleships. But its crew did have 30 years of experience, and as the old adage goes, youth and exuberance is no match for old age and treachery. Which is something that the USS Texas lived up to because it is the only US battleship to engage the enemy in all 5 theaters of World War II. D-Day, June 6, 1944. The USS Texas would take its position 12,000 yards off the coastline. At which point the USS Texas was tasked with bombarding the enemy fortifications. And it did just that, firing over 255 rounds in under 34 minutes. That is 408,000 pounds of ammunition. Let's put that into perspective. Your average Volvo weighs about 4,000 pounds. Meaning that the Texas was shooting the enemy with about 3 spicy Volvos a minute for half an hour straight. I'm trying to tell you that the Grim Yeater over here bitch slapped the enemy's coastline with an entire car dealership in the amount of time it takes you to watch a TV show. The Grim Yeater would continue to airmail spicy Volvos to the enemy until June 11th, when it ran out of ammo. But then sail to the rear detachment off the coast of France to pick up more ammunition, and then sail back to continue engaging the enemy. By the time it had returned to the beach at Normandy, the Allied troops had driven the enemy so far back that its guns could no longer reach. So it advanced from 12,000 yards to 3,000 yards, the closest they could possibly get without beaching the ship. It is at that point in time the USS Texas said, "Hold my beer," and flooded all of its blister tanks on the starboard side, tilting the entire boat, changing the angle of the guns, allowing them to reach further inland. They gangster leaned a 32,000-ton warship so they could continue to engage the enemy. This might be the most grunt-horrific moment in world history. Can you imagine playing the board game Battleship and whoever you're playing says, "I've sunk my own battleship, prepare to die," and then you get hit with a fucking car? Look, I know I talk about this a lot, but this is a great example of the type of shit that goes on when you hit the dock or the officer. It's not necessarily a war crime, but Geneva didn't necessarily know that shit was even a fucking option. The USS Texas would then go on to engage the Japanese Empire at Okinawa and Iwo Jima. After World War II, it would retire and start the Americans' proud tradition of having their best battleships become floating museums. Unlike all the other best battleships in the world who have a proud tradition of becoming tetanus-infested fish habitats, like the Japanese Yamato, delicately placed here by the USA, and the German Bismarck, delicately placed here by the USB, also known as Great Britain. If you don't know, the Bismarck and the Yamato are the 2 battleships that people like to argue are better than the Iowa-class battleships. Given the fact that all the Iowa-class battleships are floating museums that you can see anytime you'd like, and you need scuba gear to see these, it raises the question, what are they better at besides being shitty submarines?